Arbeiter, and I'm part of a broad coalition who put together and created what we're calling an Endless War Memorial. And we've been here since Sunday at sunrise, every day until sunset, and we're reading the names of the war dead in Iraq and a few in Afghanistan, some of the soldiers, American soldiers that died in Afghanistan.
Why did you feel it's important that you do this?
Well, we feel that it's very important that people see the extent of the suffering and tragedy that the people of Iraq have had to endure. In 4 years, the 4th year anniversary is coming up. We're entering the 5th year with no end in sight. And we think it's very important. We're right now in like the center, one of the most populated, busiest places in the world, and we figured we should come out here and endure the elements, and you know, together hundreds of people have come to join their voices to read these names because one group couldn't do it alone. We want to show the people, to remind the people there's a war going on, an illegal occupation. It's not even a war, it's an illegal invasion, illegal occupation, and to keep it in people's minds. We're also in the heart of corporate media, and we knew that, you know, in order to get this kind of coverage, we have to do it. It's almost like reality TV, but it's like we're here on the ground for 6 days, so tens of thousands of people could see us, because the anti-war movement is not getting the kind of coverage it should through corporate media. So we decided to come here for 6 days, and for 6 days let people see us from the minute the sun rises to the time it sets, so they don't forget or put out of their minds that we are killing people.
Isn't it amazing that ABC is literally right over there, and they could have easily, Good Morning America's right across the street, they could have easily brought, you know, a representative over, you know, what are you doing? Shoot the camera right out the window to see what's going on. How do you feel about that?
Well, we've actually waved to them and invited them to come out, and you know, it's not surprising. You know, we've seen evidence of their omission of the truth, the corporate media omission of the truth over these last 6 years while this administration has been in power. And they've consolidated power. They did consolidate power for the first 4 years, actually 6 years of their administration, where they had all the houses of Congress, and they had the corporate media as well. And I think it's just shameful what's happened, the lies that have been told, and that has been, the media is complicit in allowing that to go on. I mean, there's enough evidence. Intelligent people that read or that seek the truth can see as plain as day that much of what we're basing our foreign policy on is based on lies. The way our elections have been conducted, presidential elections, based on stolen elections. You know, it's there to see, but we need them to report it.
They, of course, don't care about how many lives you have.
The great crimes is that they've also dumbed the American people down, and the media has been complicit in that, and I think that's a shame. You know, you can either raise people's standards of intelligence up, or you can really dumb it down and manipulate the population, and I think the latter is true, and I'm sorry to see that.
Well, with your, I could see they're reading from binders. How was that list compiled?
We went and did research. There are already organizations that have done research. iCasualties.org is an organization that compiled the names also of the American soldiers. Most of the names come from there, the Iraqis. the coalition forces. There's also, I think, a website with the names of the journalists that have been killed, and we're also reading the names of the journalists and academics that have been killed in Iraq. The terrible thing is that the Iraqi names are so few. We know so many more people have lost their lives, and that their names are not even being tabulated at this point, that there's so much chaos there that people, I've learned, can't even go to the morgue or the hospital to claim their bodies or identify the bodies. It's just people are being disappeared, and their identities are being, not recorded, and they're losing their lives and their identities at this point. That's why we felt it was so important to say the names out loud and in a public space. And it's painful, to stand here for these days, to listen to the names and to read them. And I think it's moved the people that have stopped by here and seen us day in and day out. And it's also moved the people that participated. And we knew that would happen. To stand for half an hour in whatever weather conditions we've had to endure and read names, it really makes you focus and raises your consciousness. It makes you just stand for half an hour out of your life and focus on the names, their ages. Sometimes we have their occupations, the ranks of the soldiers. They're real human beings. They're somebody's family member. And, you begin to identify as a human being that these people have lost their lives. I'd walk by occasionally and I'd hear my birth date, and that's the date somebody was killed, and that was very personal, and I would stand there and it wouldn't just be read once, it was read, maybe 20 times. 20 people died that day in that year. You hear now is September 11th, 2006, it's a poignant, moment to hear that date, that we suffered such tragedy here, and then to hear on that date, 2005 or 2004, 2006, people are being killed. And part of the manipulation of the public was that they used that tragedy to convince people that Iraq was a threat to our national security, and conflated those, the tragedy of 9/11 with the threat of Iraq. Iraq had nothing to do with that crime of 9/11. It had nothing to do, and then we used that and to go and invade this country, and now we're killing people on that same date that we here read the names of the people that died here. I mean, it's endless. That's why we call it an endless war memorial. And I just think we have to do as much as we can to stop this madness. There's no way we're going to stop this kind of violence with the use of the violence that's being exercised by our military over there. Thank you.
They came in first saying that it was because we were searching for nuclear weapons, and then they were asking about, they kept giving us excuses why they were there, and then after they found out there was nothing there, they're still over there, they're trying to change over there. I believe over there, the people should choose the government that they want, the people they have the power, understand that America wants to help and make sure that they're safe, but nowhere in the world is safe, and you have to leave it to the people that are living there to make themselves safe. We have our own problems here, we have to have our troops back over here to keep ourselves safe. After we fix ourselves up over here, maybe we could lend a hand, but we already got our own economic problems over here, and we should be spending our money for our schools and our public educations and our transportation. We have many problems over here, I understand there's problems over there, but we should fix ourselves first. Well, that's the problem. Also, there's many like people that are being killed over there. Many of them not even being reported. You know, so many deaths, so many controversial things over there. Things like secret, hidden people being kidnapped over there for ransoms. You know, many things are going on, and that's certainly a problem.
Do you feel that like your average person would think that America was the kind of place that would disappear people, although that's been in our history since its inception?
Well, the average person doesn't really know that much. You know, you turn on TV and many people just are busy watching, you know, whatever they really want to watch. The news isn't really important. I mean, nowadays if you hear someone dies, it doesn't really matter. So the average person doesn't really care about these things in America, and it's sad to know that.
Well, isn't it interesting that ABC is right here? This is ABC right here. ABC is still not covered this yet. And the New York Times is right around the corner. They haven't covered it. MTV is right over here. I think they did a little piece on it. How do you feel that? Why do you think it is that they're not covering it the way that they would cover, you know, the O.J. Simpson thing or any of these other little celebrity scandals?
I think nowadays the thing is, people, they want to know, the medias and these big companies, they want to give people what they want to hear. People are sick and tired of hearing about the war. People would rather go on about their day, going shopping, having a great time, you know. So they feel like, we already told them about the war, so why should we keep warning about it? Let's go about and talk about maybe dogs that are being used to find a way to cure cancer or something like that, you know. Different things. They want to give people what they want to hear, you know. It's about money and giving people whatever they want. It's not really about giving the truth and what people need to know. It's rather what they want to know.
Do you have any family in that region?
No, not really. No.
How long has your mother been in the country?
Oh, she's been over 20 years.
Right on.
Yeah.
So when you talk at home, what does she say about it?
Well, it's the usual thing that we're upset about what's going on over there, but, you know, there's really nothing we can do about it. Only, you know, give our prayers and stuff like that.
Do you feel that it's kind of odd that we all as Americans say that there's nothing that we can do, yet we live in a democracy that we're supposed to be able to control what the government does?
Yeah, well, so many things go on, and we try to influence the greater powers, but it seems that no matter how much you try, our words don't really mean much when the greater powers are like, for example, the president. He's the commander-in-chief. You know, whatever we say, no matter what happens, if he wants a draft to come up, then that's just going to happen. We can't really do anything about it against his words. No matter how many like rallies or petitions we have, he has the final say-so.
Right. How old are you?
I'm 18.
Do you and your friends talk about this a lot?
Not really, you know. Me and my friends are usually uninformed about these things. They just think, you know, it's just blood and guts over there and people fighting and just terrorism, whatever. They don't really know what's going on. It's up to like the people. There's very few people like me that go around actually search on the internet and try to find the truth. But usually my friends are just sitting around doing the normal thing, going out watching a movie or whatever. Sometimes I had a few teachers that were very open about these topics, and I would always stand up and give my honest opinion about what's going on over there. And lots of times, maybe after class, they would ask me that I'd inform them about what's going on. But usually, you know, it's not, their attention span isn't too long, and after a while, they'll just go back to their daily lives. I mean, if the teacher were to give them a certain number of people dying over there, they'd, you know, be shocked about it. But then 5 minutes later, it wouldn't really be a big deal to them.
Aswin Hamed, age 28. Fatma Abdi Hassan Al Hassan, age 30.
Aldo Barraza, 24, Army Staff Sergeant, March 18, 2006.
Badr Hassan Gabir El Resi, age 30.
Dale G. Rep, 23, Army Sergeant.
Can you tell us what you're doing here?
Yes, I'm the Vice President of local chapter of Veterans for Peace. We're here in support of the grandmothers and the other people who are protesting this war and participating in the reading of the names of those who have been killed in this war. One speaker refers to the civilian casualties in Iraq and others to our military. Being a veteran myself, I can empathize with every mother and father and sister and brother who's lost someone in this illegal and immoral war. The fact of the matter is I find most New Yorkers and most Americans are supportive of what we're trying to do. They know that this is a lost cause. They know that we had no business causing a civil war in somebody else's country. All right? Are there a few yahoos out there who want to display their insolence and ignorance? Yes, there are, but they're few and far between. What I do find encouraging is that young people, for the most part, are becoming more and more involved in trying to put an end to this lunacy.
Do you think that that's, I mean, it's always said that the average American is, you know, against the war. The average American is not homophobic, isn't filled with ethnic hatred, isn't sexist. But all these things exist in abundance. So then how do we explain the contradiction of, if so many Americans were against the war, then why are we killing so many people?
I can identify with your question. When I returned from Vietnam, I joined two organizations, the Vietnam Veterans Against the War and the Mattachine Society. Homophobia has been a big issue in my life. Again, maybe it's misplaced, but I have a lot of confidence in the fundamental decency of the American people. People make jokes, people say a lot of things that are crude, but hopefully in their heart of hearts, they are in a better place when push comes to shove. There's been a tremendous response to General Peter Pace's recent remarks, which were insensitive and also untrue. You want to talk about immorality, killing people is immoral, all right? When I was in Nam, I was a combat medic. The only thing they asked of me was that I be a good medic and I showed necessary courage and competence to do my job. Nobody cared about my love life, all right? And that's true of just about any job in the United States military, all right? To keep people out of the military because of their sexual orientation is lunacy. Of course, Peter Pace is in a great minority. The majority of his fellow generals disagree completely with his position, including Colin Powell, thank God, at this point. This has been around for a long time. After the 9/11 incident, I think I got a pretty good idea of where the hearts and minds of New Yorkers are, because the abundance of decency and compassion that this city showed taught me that, yeah, we may say stupid things. We're all capable of doing it. I certainly do it on occasion. It's not done out of malice. It's done out of, well, the background I come from. I was raised in a time and age where prejudice was accepted. Fortunately, as I grow older, I begin to realize that, you know, the commonality of the human family is such that we have a bigger job to do, and if we don't do it, then you end up with a situation like Iraq, where selfish and greedy people bring disaster to another society. We can't impose our way of thinking. We can't impose our way of government. They want no part of it. The people of Vietnam wanted no part of what we were selling. Today, they are the most prosperous country in all of Southeast Asia. What's the reason for that? Okay? We declared victory and got out, and that's precisely what these morons in Washington should do. Do a Nixon. Declare victory and get out, and hopefully you won't have a situation as you had in Vietnam with helicopters lifting people off the top of the embassy as we were saying we won.
You had just mentioned that you were reading a list of children that had died. Can you speak about that?
Well, of course, it's a very hard thing to do when you're talking about 5- or 6-year-old children that have died as a result of our military incursion into a country. Those children never did anything to us. You know? And what you do when you create a situation like that is that you're going to create generations of resentment towards the people who did it. The military uses this terrible term, collateral damage. Collateral damage is what happens to everybody else when you're busy blowing up the place. I can think of another state in the Middle East that's very big in creating collateral damage, and hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have suffered as a result of that. These are human beings we're dealing with. Stop with the labels. These are human beings we're dealing with. They bleed like we do. They cry like we do. They hurt like we do. You lose a loved one, you're not going to like very much the people who used a tank. You know, we talk about terrorists. someone who straps a bunch of dynamite around themselves and then goes and blows up a cafe. Well, if a guided missile comes in and takes out half your town, is that terrorism? You know?
Well, I guess it depends on who's dropping the bomb.
Precisely. It depends upon whose ox is being gored, and we're the ones who are doing all the goring now. And there's the problem. We'd like to put a stop to that. Among veterans, there are two major streams of thought. The Veterans for War, they call VFW, and there's people like us. And I tend to think that the majority of veterans who are not involved in veterans organizations are on our side. And slowly but surely, the people from the mainline organizations are beginning to question the legitimacy of this war.
Do you find
a good sign?
Yeah. Do you also find it interesting that it seems that you've had the most people resign, like high-level people resign, especially in the intelligence agencies, than in any other time in our history? Can you comment on that?
Well, it's a sign of the times. People don't like being taken. It's as simple as that. They know they've been taken. The guy I have the greatest sympathy for is General Colin Powell. I'd hate to be in his shoes, though. He was used, and he was used badly. He was fed a pack of lies and sent to the United Nations to announce those lies. And that's why he's distancing himself from the administration, too. People of goodwill just can't put up with this, and they can't put up with it for much longer. My only problem with the generals, I understand their position, but they only speak out after they've completed their service. That's not much good. Now, when you have a general who believes something strongly, not that I respect Douglas MacArthur any too much, but the fact of the matter is the man stood his ground and spoke out. Yeah, and Harry Truman quite rightly fired him. But if you don't speak out, I'm reminded of President Eisenhower, who for all of his time in the presidency built things like the Strategic Air Command, put an enormous increase in our military expenditures, and then when he left office, warned the American people about the military-industrial complex. Well, for God's sakes, he created it. All right, and we have the same today. We have a situation where the military-industrial complex is running the country in collusion with the oil barons. For what reason would you want to move the Halliburton Corporation to Dubai, other than the fact that Dick Cheney is going to become its next CEO? By act of Congress, he's allowed to, and they can't extradite him from Dubai because the man would eventually be up on criminal charges for the actions of the Halliburton Corporation and particularly its KBR subsidiary. What can I tell you?
If ABC, which is right behind us, were to turn around and say, I'll give you 2 minutes to say whatever you like on international television, what would you say?
I'd faint. I mean, I'm reminded of what they asked William F. Buckley once. Well, he ran for mayor of New York, and they asked him, what was the first thing you would do if you were elected? And he said, I'd demand a recount. All right, well, I would faint if any major network actually had the guts to do that. Now, having said that, I am encouraged. People like Keith Olbermann, for example, are trying to hold the politicians' feet to the fire. And the more we have like that, the better. Now, I can't say that that the grandmothers against the war, Veterans for Peace, various organizations haven't gotten some coverage. We have. Would we like more? Of course. Any person with any cause would like to have more coverage than we do. The American people in the last election made it very, very clear how they feel about this. And, of course, the Democrats get into office and they can't wait to play the game and not keep their promises. This troubles me a lot. Nancy Pelosi sounded good in those ads.
Right.
Now where's the action?
Hillary had mentioned that she was going to, she would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon or to have a nuclear. Right. Yeah. Now, has anybody mentioned that it's not up to us to allow or not allow them to use anything, especially since they haven't threatened the use of them?
I find it interesting she's not concerned that the state of Israel has a couple of hundred nuclear warheads. This situation, if we're going to disarm, then let's everybody disarm. I see Great Britain has just authorized a whole new crop of nuclear weapons. The United States is doing exactly the same thing. We have to upgrade our 1 megaton killers, considering that those are 1,000 times as powerful a 1 megaton weapon being 1,000 times as powerful as what was used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we're going to increase these devil weapons, and we say we're going to make the world safer as a result of them.
What about the cluster bombs?
Oh, another outlawed totally by the Geneva Convention. We make them, we sell them, and we use them. Is it a terrible thing? Yes. We're certainly not honoring our obligations to the UN. We're not abiding by the Geneva Treaty. We're not treating other people who we take captive under the terms of the Geneva Treaty. Habeas corpus seems to have gone out the window. It's reported that one of Bush's advisors said to him, Mr. President, that might not be constitutional. And Bush's remark was, don't bother me with the Constitution. It's a GD piece of paper. Now, if you have a chief executive with an attitude like that, you're in deep trouble. And that's what we have.
To us for a minute, and I said, yeah, I'd be glad to. He said, hey, man, we saw something strange tonight. I said, sit down. Tell me about it. And he said, well, we were outside the tent while all that commotion was going on. That's what they call it, commotion. And they said, we saw something outside. I said, what'd you see?